Chapter 11, the author of this book argues the relationship between economics, evolution, and rationality. All along the chapter, he provides examples of his own life, among others, but in this review, for the sake of simplicity, I will just talk in general terms what the author may have wanted to report. To start, the author begins explaining classical economic theory. From the point of view of classical economic theory, we, human beings, make decisions and choices in a rational way. That is, we carefully think. And although this was not pointed out in the book, I believe this thinking and processing is supposed to be conscious. So we carefully think and then choose the most efficient option, the one that makes the most benefit for ourselves. This definition is about economic issues, of course. However, many have taken it as the definition, with capital letter, of the rational human being. Here it is where studies in behavioral economics and cognitive and social psychology come to challenge that idea. They propose and explain a clear tendency in humans for using simplistic heuristics and irrational biases when decision making. And surprisingly, from an evolutionary point of view, that is what makes us so smart. So, just to clear out what I'm talking here, I'll show you an example. Imagine you had 100 euros. From the rational economics point of view, the best way is to invest them in yourself. Now, from an evolutionary position, the best way would be, for example, to invest in your children if you had. That is, in other people. So the contradiction is pretty clear. As classical economic theory places the rational decision on benefiting the individual, it will be tremendously rational to spend that money in others. So why evolutionary, social, and cognitive perspective defend that maths, that we make irrational choices, and what's more, that we are smart for that? I just said in part 1 that evolutionarily the best option is to invest in other people. If it is relatives, it will be better, but we're talking about other people. Okay, so it is not that we are very altruistic giving what is ours to others. In fact, those behaviors are more self serving than we thought. Introducing the idea that we have a set of mini minds or sub selves inside us, and they are the ones who decide what is best for us, weighing up the costs and benefits of its decision. We discovered that they, the sub selves, rather than immediate benefit, prefer long term benefit. And why do our genes prefer long term success? And what does that have to do with helping relatives? The answer is simple. Evolutionarily, investing in your genes, in your DNA, that is your offspring or other relatives, is the straightforward solution for survival and reproduction. Put in other words, the gains of your family equal your gains. And that is why those irrational choices are in fact the evidence of deep rationality. A rationality that goes beyond the present and looks for the good of you and your people, and in more general terms, the good of humans as a species. This last concept connects with the idea that when we make choices at a deeper level, our biases reflect important, functionally relevant motivations that influence and maximize long term genetic success. What makes human beings feel interconnected in a big network as society.
Chapter 12 shows an overview about Kendrick's childhood in school as well as college. He speaks about the importance of influences and states the people who introduced him to take part in many scientific and philosophical based arguments. Throughout the chapter, he highlights three main ideas from his early studies. The first one is multidirectional causality. Cause and effect are difficult to separate in certain environments because an effect can turn around and alter what caused it. The second one is the nature of self-organization. Here he highlights that order usually emerges out of randomness, maintained by simple interaction between locals. The third idea is how complexity can result from interaction of variables. The idea of how slight changes can become in profound and complicated consequences. Moreover, he speaks about how psychologists state that our inclination to imitate others is autonomic and unconscious. However, as explained in a neighborhood experiment, some people are easily influenced compared with others. The author highlights the following question: what factors or characteristics in this world determine if you are more prone to go along the group or you are keen on being independent? In order to answer this question, you must join an evolutionary psychological and dynamical systems theory. He then introduces the idea of social geometries, which is basically the spatial form that certain relationships can take, such as friendship, which is characterized by being flat and interconnected. Here, protection is involved, therefore the bigger the group, the better. Then he talks about mateship. He explains the evolutionary perspective of monogamy and jealousy. Women who are not keen on promiscuity usually fight because as both parents offer resources to their offspring, the woman does not want those resources being given to someone else than her family. Lastly, he speaks about family. Here, resources go from top, which are the parents, to bottom, which are children. It is said to be the most stable geometries because parents will stay providing resources and care even if things go wrong. To end up with, Kendrick raises a question that has been previously introduced in chapter 11. In this part, he talks about the physiological basis and background of being around people. He stated that when you are in group, your behaviors are perfectly linked to the behaviors of others, and we could name these mutual interactions. This perfectly explains why human nature is closely linked to religion, culture, and economics.
To conclude Kendrick's book, he talks about the best approach to interpret the meaning of life, combining evolutionary psychology, cognitive science, and dynamical systems theory. In the first place, we saw in the book that cognitive scientists explain our brains as machines that could perform some functions. He speaks about how we human beings process information in selective manners, only paying attention to small portions of what is happening. Therefore, he says that we process information in different ways, throughout many examples. Secondly, the evolutionary perspective is explained throughout the following chapters. Now, within this view, we discover that brains come with some built-in crunching priorities and information about, for instance, poisonous foods, dangerous predators, potential mates, etc. Stuff that is useful for our survival and then our reproduction. Kendrick explains as well as how our evolutionary psychology tries to describe the meaning of life, attempting to state human behaviors as aggression, altruism, mate selection, artistic display, conspicuous consumption, in addition to religious beliefs. And for instance, in chapter 7, it is talked about how our different motivational subselves make different trade-offs to maximize successful reproduction. And by last, the book makes an overview of the dynamical systems theory, which explains how although our individual heads are full of selfish mechanisms, we somehow manage to come together to form smoothly functioning groups, organized societies, and international economic markets. Moreover, in chapter 12 this is discussed, explained through examples, self-organization, the spontaneous emergence of order out of initial disarray, and tremendous complexity that can emerge from a simple parameters, remarking the example of the ants and how they create complex networks of managing and work. And finally, to sum up, we would remark the author's perspective and recommendation. He explains the reason of life through asking oneself not what we can do for ourselves. The worst piece of advice he received in his life was, "You've got to do what's right for you." Because as the time passed by, he found out that he had to do what was right for those he loved. So we human beings are ultimately designed not to seek ecstatic happiness from dawn to dusk, but to be linked into a supportive web with other human beings. Indeed, he read in the book The How of Happiness by Sonia Lubomirsky, which approach to positive psychology, and in a research it showed up that people who spend time doing nice things for their loved ones are ultimately less depressed and more fulfilled in their own personal lives. Therefore, in conclusion, we humankind are chock full of mechanisms designed to make us feel good when we cement our bonds with those around us.